I recently had a chance of reading Rich Dad Poor Dad once again, just because I wanted some clarity on a few concepts on the tax elements that he had talked about, and then the cash flow quadrants, as well as his take on assets and liabilities, because I seem to remember he had a pretty cool definition for them that I just wanted to keep top of mind as I keep trying to organize my financial thought or to build this whole financial life that I want to have. So I decided to just read through the book once again. But as I was reading through it, Rich Dad Poor Dad has this way of inspiring you and giving you this whole look into what you could do to better your finances in a way that yes, first of all, inspires you, but it kind of reveals like what you didn't know or what you think you didn't know, something like that. There is this whole secretive element that you are finding out something new, of which, we all know these things, but he just did a very good job at writing the book. And due to that inspiration, I just wanted to share some few insights and anecdotes that I found interesting and might help a few more people. Though I would definitely recommend you read the book. Please just go and read the book. It's a small book. It's small-ish, okay? The copy I have a digital copy, so it was about 240 something pages, but literally the book itself and the gist is in around 190 pages. The rest is an extract of the next book, which was Cash Flow Quadrant, and then at the beginning he has all these empty pages. They just leave empty. I don't know why publishers do that, but anyway, I first read this book in high school. I actually read it during prep. For those of you that don't know what prep is, in our school system here in Uganda, this is a time that is okay. There are these times that are designated outside of the normal class hours, so outside of the 7 a.m. or 8 p.m., whatever time class starts for you, to 5 or 4:40 or 3, I don't know, but depending on the school, there is time outside that can be used literally for anything. So a teacher could come in and teach. You could use it for personal study, but you're required to be in class, and that is prep. So there is morning prep, usually 5, 4, 5:30 to 6 or to 7, depends. And then there is evening prep from like 7 p.m. to like 9 or 10 or even longer. But in my case, it was morning prep 5 to 6:30, and then evening prep 7 to 10 p.m. So for me, in my personal time during this prep time, I used to read books and novels because I was just that bad at anything that wasn't technical drawing. So I first read this back in 2018, and that's why I have just reread it since 2025, obviously. And I think that's literally enough for the intro. Let's just get into the episode. Wow. Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the 5 to 9 Joe podcast. I'm your host, Raymond, and today I am sharing a few notes from the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I also have a quick clip from Robert Kiyosaki, who is the writer or the author of the book, and it's an extract from an interview he did a few years back. I'm going to credit and attach all the links to the original interview in the show notes. But for now, just make sure you stick to the end and have a good listen to how he explains the concepts in the book. It's a pretty cool summary of what I'm going to talk about and what he talks about in the book. But, for me, I have always found that listening to the voice and relating it with video and then with the pictures and with the words just seems to get it further into my, that long-term memory. So just stick around for that, and definitely if you want to listen to the full audio or if you just want to listen to more of Robert Kiyosaki's work, I would just encourage you to just Google it or just go to YouTube and find as many videos as you can on the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. Okay, let's get into it. So the book was written by Robert Kiyosaki, and it contrasts the financial mindsets of two figures. And in this case, Rich Dad emphasizes financial independence through investment and entrepreneurship. And then the second personality is poor dad, his actual biological dad or father, who represents people that stick to the traditional employment and savings that most of us fall into, the category that most of us fall into. So it's definitely not fiction. These were real guys, and the stories within the book are real as well. Anyway, the whole premise of this book is to drive us, the readers, from thinking like poor dad to thinking like rich dad. So not only is it a book about money, but it's also about shifting your mentality, which for me is a bonus. I think it would be so flat, like a textbook, if it didn't have this element. So he just describes that to succeed financially, you need to learn how money works. And then he goes through a lot of concepts like taxes, assets, liabilities, and then the cash flow, because unfortunately, we aren't taught these things in school. Like within the curriculum, schools only focus on the academic skills, but they don't teach you these fundamental life skills, or the financial literacy is what he calls it. Because there's actually a part in the book whereby he says someone could be educated, have degrees, and make lots of money, but he's financially illiterate, because that is something that is not taught in the systems that we have. Anyway, he goes ahead to break this down, this whole financial literacy thing. He breaks it into a game of assets versus liabilities. And the definition I was actually looking for is this for the assets and liability thing. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. He had the simplest definitions for these things, guys. An asset being something that puts money into your pocket. So those are investments, real estate, like rentable real estate, not just real estate. And then businesses, things like that. And then a liability being something that takes money out of your pocket. So that is debt. Remember, when you are servicing a debt, regardless of the fact that you borrowed the money, it is taking now money out of your pocket, so it is still a liability. Cars, just because when you buy it you still have to repair, you did put gas, those are so, and all these other expenses including your house. And he measures on this whole thing around your house being an asset or liability, and he poses the question and then he debates it. And he looks at how rich people attain assets, and then how the middle class attain liabilities and think they are assets, and then poor people don't attain any assets, they just simply have liabilities. I mean, at first, the first time I read this book, I kind of felt like he was going at his dad so hard. Like, I couldn't disattach the emotional connotation of calling your dad your like biological dad the poor dad, and then calling someone else the rich dad, and then going through all the book and pointing out all the inadequacies and weaknesses that your dad has, that he was teaching you, that this other person that was not your dad is now trying to correct and put you on this other path. But I mean, you just need to read the book with an open mind and not just think about that. But basically what he says is that most people think that their house is an asset, that the car is an asset, but once it starts taking money out of your pocket every month, every day to maintain it, it's not, it's a liability. And but if you turn around and rent the two out, so if you rent your house or your car out so that they are paying you, or you find a way to kind of monetize those assets or those specific objects, or a skill that you have, that is when it becomes an asset, in other words. Because now, let me say, if you rented out your car, that person would be paying you something every month, that becomes an asset because it brings money into you. But if you're putting money into it every month, so again, it's just about putting money in and out of your pocket. Poor people get liabilities, call them assets, but only get poorer because they just keep losing more and more money, while the rich get rich because they get assets, and then they get more money from those assets, which makes them richer and richer. I don't know if that's English there, but yeah, let's go on. He also goes ahead to talk about the job thing, and he says instead of focusing solely on earning a paycheck, work to gain skills and knowledge so you are able to build wealth like Rich Dad and not benefits like Poor Dad. He actually began this topic by contrasting that, his poor dad was valuing the security and the paycheck that the job was giving him, that, oh, my job gives me healthcare, what, those are the benefits. While his rich dad would only take a job if he was learning from it. So they had completely different priorities for doing something or getting into a contract or something like that. So it was just a mindset thing. But he tried to contrast that instead of focusing solely on earning a paycheck, work to gain skills and knowledge so that you are able to build wealth like Rich Dad and not benefits like Poor Dad, to value experience and education over the salary. So there is actually a point in the book where they go to work for Rich Dad and he is paying them nothing, like close to nothing. And that was the lesson there. Do not rely on the paycheck, because then you get addicted to it and you don't think of ways to make more money, which is true. He actually went ahead to explain that most people, when they get addicted to the paycheck, they get stuck in the rat race. So the rat race is kind of this connotation whereby someone is stuck in this loop of working hard just to survive, but again they are being taxed, and then they have all these expenses, they have all these liabilities that they think are assets, and they end up not building wealth because you're just working tirelessly and endlessly to pay your bills with no wealth accumulation, instead of investing in assets that are going to help you generate passive income so that your money works for you. Instead, you are working for money. And in the story I was trying to tell you, when they went to work for Rich Dad, he started by paying them something like 90 cents, 30 cents. And then as the weeks went on, this guy literally like cut off all the pay. So these guys were going, they work, they go back home, and they have dry lips. So, and his poor dad got annoyed. He was like, this guy is trying to, take advantage of you and everything. He's just using you for free labor. Let me go and have and show him. You get it? But the lesson he was teaching him is to not be addicted. And actually, after that, these guys came up with an idea to, rent out the magazines that they were selling at the store. And they found a way for their sisters, for Mike's sister, to actually run the business for them, as them they did other things. So you realize they actually got their money to work for them, because they would buy this from the store, they give it here, and then all the neighborhood kids would pay more to, and everything just worked out. And I think the best part about this book also, I'm going to come to that, but the second best part for me would be all the stories and how you can clearly see these are not fabricated. You get it? Like they are very possible stories. There are books you read and you can clearly see the story is far-fetched. There was a man, and those kind of stories. But this book just shows you that being intentional with training your kids can actually pan out this way if you're like very intentional. Anyway, another part I liked that really resonated with me, because I did fall prey to this, was how fear of failure limits the potential for so many people. So he actually had a chapter whereby he talked about a lot of things. He talked about fear, he talked about laziness, yeah, and all these bad habits and everything. And he just showed how all these things limit potential for so many people. And he just encouraged us to use, the mistakes as learning opportunities instead of seeing them as hurdles. And then if you were feeling lazy, he needed you to get a good reason why. Things like that. He was offering these solutions to these life problems. And actually, there was a part where he reached and he was like, if you don't have a strong reason why you want to get rich or anything, I advise you don't go on reading this book, because you're just wasting your time. Going forward with this book would be like being in this whole loop of thinking you're doing something without doing anything. If you don't have a strong reason why, if you're not going to endure to actually be disciplined enough to try to change your mindset, you're not going to benefit from reading the rest of the book. But yeah, fear and fear of failure definitely limits a lot of people's potential, and he just talks about it so well in this book. The Next part is one you should definitely read because even if I try to explain it, it would make the episode a little longer than I would wish for, considering I'm going to add an audio clip at the end. But he breaks it all down. How the rich use taxes to stay rich and then keep more of their money. So definitely check it out how they use corporations and the tax slips through, and then you get your just go and check it out. The other thing about the book is that it has all these illustrations, so if you're having hard time understanding where liabilities come in and how your income, how you can use the C corp or the S corp before being taxed, and then it comes into your income, and you can use your expenses in the C corp, you can definitely just follow along with the drawings that are in. And for anyone that likes drawings, personally for me, when a book has pictures, I just get more excited to read it. I don't know if everyone else is like that, but yeah, that's another good thing about this book. Anyway, he also advises us to surround ourselves with financially intelligent people and to learn from them. This is something I didn't remember from the book the first time I read it, but I saw it this time. And then in the audio, he goes ahead to explain it further by using the analogy of having to build a rugby team so you can win more. In other words, surround yourself with the best, seek mentors and study successful individuals to just fast track your financial journey. And I guess this brings me to the last part I want to talk about, and that is the mental part. The mental shift is in realizing that money is a tool and not the goal. That was what he was actually trying to preach all through the game, or all through the whole book. Money is a tool and not the goal. That wealth gives you options to live life on your terms, and that whoever is chasing after money is doing it the wrong way. These days it's called chasing the bag, okay? But it's still the same thing. So the better way is to have money work for you, not working for money. So essentially, do not chase money for material things. Just use it to design the kind of life that you want, to design a fulfilling life. So you set up all these assets to take care of your family. You set up all these corporations, set up the partnerships, use all that financial intelligence that you have gained in the book to make sure you have a better financial life, a more fulfilling life. The other two things in regards to the mental part is shifting your mindset from scarcity to abundance. So shifting from scarcity versus abundance. So an example here is shifting from I can't afford it to how can I afford it. That is a very big and powerful mindset shift. And then finally, in the mindset game, is to shift from paralysis to action over analysis. So to take action and learn through experience instead of overthinking. So that's just everything I wanted to share from the book. I've had a few points jangled in and out. I haven't really gotten to to like the core things that he talked about, because these are things I was trying to recollect from the book to see if, I'd read it and understood it. But definitely go and read the book. I have not done it justice. And like I said, get a copy, read it. It's so widespread that you can easily download it from the web. But like any reader will tell you, it's better you actually read it in a physical copy or in a physical form, so that you can just read the book. You can underline, you can bookmark and everything. But yeah, I definitely recommend reading the book. Okay, so I had promised you an audio at the end, and here it is.
The moment you accept a paycheck, your brain goes dead. He says, as long as you're hungry, you'll think. My rich dad started teaching me about money on one condition. And that condition was he would never pay me. He says, the moment I pay you, you think like an employee. He says, that's the trap. Entrepreneurs work for free. And now I'm 9 years old, my head's going cracking in half. He says, you never want a paycheck. You understand that, kid? I said, okay, I got it. We all have fear. To be truthful, we all have fear. It's just how you deal with it. And, Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. But knowledge empowers imagination. got to have the basic knowledge of taxes, debt, financial statements, and all that. If you don't want to learn it, I can't help you. So my poor dad never wanted to learn what my rich dad was teaching me. And what most people lack is real business knowledge. You got to know that stuff, but they don't teach it in school to anybody. The school system was designed to teach you to be an employee, which is important, or a doctor or a lawyer, a specialist, but never about money. Poverty is passed on. It's taught in your families. And middle class is taught in families. And so the people right now who are sitting at home, who are struggling financially or worried about money or unhappy, they may be making a lot of money, but unhappy with what they're doing, it was probably taught to you.
Do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Rob?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Right.
Keep them poor. The poor will always be amongst us because it starts up here. It's in their words, but when they say I can't afford it or I can't do that, they become what they say. And I meet so many people, I can't afford it, you think I made of money? And my rich dad would say, that's why he's poor. Poor people say, I can't afford it, I can't do that, I don't have time. Because it's an escape. It's easy to say, I can't afford it. Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I can't go to the gym. You know, when you could go to the gym, but no, I can't. Truth is, I'm just too lazy to go to the gym. But the thing is that we become creatures of our own habits. And until we break the habit, we don't change. But the way he taught me about money was playing Monopoly. And finally one day I got upset. I said, well, when are you going to teach me about money? He says, what do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He goes, no. What do you think we're doing? We're playing Monopoly. He says, what do you think we're doing? So I don't know. I'm teaching you about money. And then that's when, you have one greenhouse. He says, there's many formulas for great success in money. There's thousands of them. But one of the best ones found on the game of Monopoly. Still is today. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. I said, what? He says, one of the greatest ways to acquire great wealth is playing Monopoly in real life. 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. Well, is that all there is? He goes, that's it. And he says, what do you think I'm doing? And I went, I don't know. So then he took me out and he showed me his greenhouses. And 10 years later, when I was 19, I was now in school in New York, and I come back to Hawaii, and Rich Dad had bought the biggest piece of land smack dab in the middle of Waikiki Beach. And when you go to Waikiki Beach today, you'll see the Hyatt Regency Hotel. That was his hotel.
Just like the game of Monopoly.
Just like the game of Monopoly.
Acquired assets and they became bigger assets.
He just kept what's called an assemblage, because that property wasn't that big at the time. So he had to buy out all the small guys. Because Waikiki was a little dirt water little town. So he'd buy out this shop owner and buy that shop owner. And it took him a while, but he finally assembled this large piece of property. And then he and Hyatt put up this giant hotel. It just sold for $800 million. So that's how I learned about money. And then Rich Dad Poor Dad came in '97. And the story goes, every publisher turned me down. They said, you don't know what you're talking about. Because they said savers were losers, your house is not an asset, and the rich don't work for money. And so the publishers are like my dad, academic superstars, they're the A students in school. And so they turned the book down. And it took going by self-published route. A lot of network marketing companies picked up the book, like Amway and those guys. And they picked up the book to help recruit, because it's about financial independence. They're about the same thing I am. And then Oprah called in 2000. And then the next day I'm on Oprah, and I went from obscurity to world famous, overnight success in 2000. And the book has been on the New York Times bestsellers for 7 years, until the New York Times took it off. They said it had been on too long. But as you know, most people in publishing or journalism, they're on the other side of the coin of capitalism, So they don't like guys who make money. And that's like my poor dad's side. So that's kind of the story. And, I I play Monopoly in real life. I don't need a job. I don't have a retirement. Don't need a retirement. I don't want the government to take care of me. But I felt a social responsibility to teach. And that's what my rich dad did for me. And the average person, the reason they're poor is they haven't failed. You know, they play it so safe. They haven't made any mistakes like they taught in school. That means they don't learn anything. That's why the school system's actually fundamentally corrupt. It's anti-education.
Right.
Don't make mistakes and don't ask for help. And if I didn't ask for help, I have my accountants, my attorneys, my bankers, and all that. You know, I go into business like a rugby team. You know, boom, boom, and we kick butt. But the average guy is standing there, oh, I'm an A student, I'm going to do this all on myself, and a bunch of rugby players run you over, and you go, well, they're not playing fair. Yeah, well, you're playing stupid. You should have a team. You should have accountants, attorneys, and bankers, and all that stuff. But that's not the game I want to play. I said, then don't play the game. You know, the game of business is played with accountants, attorneys, bankers, hate to say it, politicians. You know, you got to know the game. So what I say to young people is, you find your game. So my game financially is business, number one. Second is real estate. And that's why I pay no taxes, legally. It is a combination of business and real estate that gives us an unfair advantage over employees because they don't know what to do. You know, your superego was taught, get a job, work hard, or you'll never be rich, or the rich are evil, or whatever.
And until you change your mindset,
Correct.
Money won't help you, right?
Correct.
And we see that with people that win the lottery, people that make more money, they still have the same problem.
Right.
Because they have that poor man's soul.
Right. If you're poor, you'll always be poor.
That's really hard for people to
Yeah,
understand.
the money will disappear that fast. Just like most pro athletes, they make millions of dollars, and 65% are bankrupt 5 years later. It's because they come from poor families. Now you tell them that, they get very angry at you. It's not, it's the rich fault. It's you guys ripped me off and government ripped me off. But unfortunately, what Mr. Lipton was saying, it's passed down genetically. That's the frightening thing.
Alright, so that was my episode on Rich Dad Poor Dad. Kindly like the episode, follow and subscribe to the podcast, comment. We love to hear from you. I haven't really heard from anyone apart from on the Gmail, on mail. But yeah, I would like to see some comments flow in. Anyway, have a good day. Thank you for listening to this episode of the 5 to 9 Job. I'll see you in the next episode definitely. And bye-bye.